Everyone thought she was just a nurse, until the bullets started flying. One Navy SEAL was out of the fight, and chaos took over the field hospital. But she didn't panic. She grabbed the rifle, aimed, and turned the battle around in seconds. You won't believe what happens next. The night was heavy with smoke, and the acrid smell of burning metal. Inside the field hospital, the fluorescent lights flickered over blood-stained floors and overturned gurneys. Outside, gunfire shattered the tense air. Most of the staff panicked, ducking behind makeshift barricades or frantically trying to save wounded soldiers. Among them moved a calm figure, her light blue scrubs smeared with dirt and blood. Nurse Jordan Hale. To everyone, she was just another nurse, soft-spoken, focused, efficient, but tonight would reveal she was far more than anyone imagined. A Navy SEAL named Marcus McDaniels was rushed in on a stretcher, screaming in pain, his chest bleeding from a high-caliber round. His tactical vest was shredded, and every medic who tried to touch him froze under the roar of distant gunfire. "Get him on a table! Now!" Jordan commanded, her voice cutting through the chaos like a scalpel. A few medics scrambled to obey, astonished at the authority in her tone. Mac's eyes were wild, panic flashing across his face. "They're everywhere. We're pinned!" he gasped, clutching the wound. Jordan knelt beside him, assessing quickly. "Stay with me. You're going to be fine," she said, her hands moving with practiced precision to stem the bleeding, but her eyes never left the doorway, scanning for threats. Outside, the enemy fighters were advancing, their truck-mounted guns tearing through debris and sending sparks and rocks flying. The walls of the hospital shook with each impact. Medics screamed. Soldiers yelled. The hospital had become a trap. Jordan's mind raced. She had been in field hospitals before, but nothing like this. Not the gunfire, not the explosions, not the knowledge that a single mistake could mean the difference between life and death for dozens of people under her care. And Mac, a SEAL trained for the worst, was struggling to stay conscious. A young medic stumbled in, holding a bag of supplies. "Jordan, what do we do? He's losing too much blood." She took the bag and didn't hesitate. "We stabilize him. I need a chest tube now, and cover the exits." Her calm, almost mechanical precision was the only thing keeping panic from spreading. Mac looked at her with disbelief. You're just a nurse." Jordan's jaw tightened. "Just a nurse? I've done more than patch up wounds. Move him! Move!" Another round of gunfire rattled the windows, and debris crashed onto the floor. The hospital staff ducked instinctively, but Jordan stayed low beside Mac, her hands steady, her focus unwavering. Her mind flicked through training she hadn't mentioned to anyone. Combat med, tactical awareness, situational assessment. Skills she had kept hidden in plain sight. A nearby explosion shook the roof, sending a cloud of dust into the room. Mac's eyes widened, fear and pain mingling. "We're done for. It's over," he whispered. Jordan's gaze hardened. "Not on my watch," she said. She glanced toward the supply closet, noting the line of rifles and sidearms that had been hastily stored. Her heart beat steadily. She knew the soldiers needed more than medicine. They needed defense, and she knew deep down that she could provide it. The first enemy fighter breached the hospital's front line, his weapon spitting fire as he ducked behind rubble. Medics screamed and scattered. Jordan didn't flinch. She leaned over Mac, securing the wound with the precision of someone who had seen far too many fights, both in hospital halls and battlefields. And then instinctively she reached toward the nearest rifle, her eyes locked on the advancing threat outside, calculating trajectory, distance, and the chaos of the battlefield. The medics froze as she lifted it with the steady hands of a seasoned operator, not just a nurse. Mac's eyes widened further. "Wait, what are you— Cover the patient!" She snapped. The first shot rang out, precise, clean. The enemy fighter went down before he could react. Silence fell for a heartbeat, then chaos erupted again. But now the tide had shifted, even if no one realized it yet. Jordan's calm, calculated presence inspired the staff around her. Medics and soldiers alike found courage in her gaze. The SEAL, barely conscious, stared at her in shock. He had trained for decades to handle this, and yet here was a nurse, holding a rifle, poised and deadly, changing the rules of engagement in real time. Outside, the firefight continued. Explosions lit the night sky, debris flew in all directions, but inside the hospital, the focus remained razor-sharp. Jordan assessed every angle, every threat, every wounded life in her care. And then she saw it. the enemy regrouping near the truck, preparing for another push. Her fingers tightened on the rifle's grip, calm, focused, unstoppable. The battle had only just begun, and the world was about to see the true extent of her courage. The enemy prepared to storm the hospital again. Jordan's finger hovered on the trigger, her eyes scanning for the perfect moment. Mac, barely conscious, whispered in disbelief, You're not just a nurse." And that was when the first hail of bullets hit the wall just inches from her shoulder. The bullets ripped through the air, ricocheting off walls and splintering wooden beams. Dust choked the room as windows shattered, sending shards flying across the blood-stained floor. Jordan Hale didn't flinch. Her fingers were steady on the rifle, eyes scanning every shadow for movement. Every second counted, and she knew that hesitation could cost lives. Mac Daniels groaned beside her, barely conscious. "I can't move. We're dead," he whispered. Blood seeped through his chest bandages, but Jordan's focus was unbroken. "You're not dead," she said firmly, pressing a cloth to the wound. "Stay with me. Watch, and you'll see why panic isn't an option." Another enemy fighter burst through the debris, his rifle swinging wildly. Medics froze, some screaming, others diving for cover. Jordan aimed with surgical precision. One shot. The enemy went down, collapsing behind a toppled gurney. Her calm, lethal precision caused a ripple effect through the room. The medics around her found courage in her steady presence, following her orders instead of succumbing to fear. Jordan barked, "Check all exits. Cover the patient. Don't stop moving." Max struggled to focus, trying to comprehend what was happening. You're not just a nurse," he muttered, his voice weak but tinged with awe. Jordan ignored his disbelief, scanning the room for threats. She noted the enemy regrouping near the truck outside, preparing for another push. Her eyes flicked to a stack of medkits and spare rifles along the wall. Every detail mattered. She had to anticipate their moves before they reached the hospital. The door rattled violently as another group of attackers tried to force their way in. Jordan pivoted, dropping into a crouch, her rifle steady. She fired 2 precise shots. One enemy went down instantly, the other dropped behind cover, clutching his shoulder. "Good," she muttered under her breath. "Keep the pressure on them." The medics worked furiously to stabilize Mac, but Jordan knew that the fight wasn't just about saving him. It was about survival for everyone in the hospital. She barked orders while picking off attackers, moving with tactical awareness honed from years of secret training. Every shot counted, every movement had a purpose. A young medic named Luis peeked from behind a desk. "Jordan, I've never seen anyone." "Focus," she snapped. "Stay low, cover your angles, and don't stop. You want to save lives or you want to panic?" Her gaze pierced him, and he nodded, renewed courage flooding his expression. Outside, enemy reinforcements were closing in. The truck revved, guns blazing, but Jordan had already anticipated their path. She adjusted her aim, calculating distance, cover, and trajectory in a fraction of a second. Another precise shot, and one of the attackers tumbled to the ground. Max struggled to sit up, incredulous. "You're unreal. I've seen combat, Jordan. I've trained my whole life. And you're..." "Quiet," she interrupted, pressing a hand to his shoulder. "Focus on staying alive. I'll handle the rest." The enemy began firing from multiple directions now, testing the hospital's defenses. Jordan moved like water, fluid and lethal. She fired, ducked behind cover, threw a flashbang she had grabbed from the supply closet, and shifted positions, all in a matter of seconds. Each action was precise, calculated, and devastatingly effective. Medics and soldiers watched, wide-eyed. The nurse, who everyone assumed was unarmed, had become the pivot point of the battle. Her presence alone changed the dynamic. A second explosion shook the building. Dust and debris filled the air. Jordan coughed but maintained her stance, eyes on the approaching enemy. One more push, one more wave, and she knew this fight could be won or lost. She noticed movement near the emergency exit, a shadow slipping in. Without hesitation, she swung her rifle, the shot ringing out sharply. The shadow dropped. Jordan didn't allow herself to breathe. She scanned for the next threat. Luis whispered, almost reverently, "How are you?" "Trained," Jordan said simply. Her calmness in the storm was unnerving, but it kept everyone alive. Mac, bleeding and exhausted, could only watch in disbelief. I underestimated you," he admitted, his voice barely audible. I thought, "You thought I was just a nurse," Jordan finished for him. Her tone wasn't angry, it was factual, almost like a statement of truth. I'm more than what you see, and right now that matters more than anything. The enemy regrouped, huddling near their truck, preparing for another charge. Jordan knew that if they broke through, the hospital would be overrun. She glanced around the room, counting her allies, her medics, her wounded soldiers. Her mind raced. She needed a plan to buy time and to protect Mac. A sudden spark of realization hit her. Luis, move the med kits to the side, cover the doorway, and everyone else, follow me. We're setting up choke points. They're not getting through. Medics scrambled, inspired by her decisiveness. Jordan took the high ground behind a counter, sighting her rifle toward the main entry. Every second of delay, every enemy neutralized, gave Mac a chance to survive. The enemy advanced again, closer this time. The truck's headlights illuminated the shattered windows, giving Jordan a perfect shot. She exhaled slowly, fired, and one enemy fell. Another returned fire, ricocheting off the walls. Jordan's head barely moved, her focus unbroken. "Jordan, how are you doing this?" Mac whispered, almost in awe. "By not panicking," she replied. "By thinking 2 steps ahead. By not underestimating what a nurse can do." The room fell into tense silence for a moment, punctuated by distant explosions and the occasional gunshot. Jordan's steady breathing was the only constant. She knew the enemy would test them again, harder this time, but she was ready. Her gaze hardened, scanning the shadows once more. The first wave of attackers had been repelled, but the battle was far from over. Jordan Hale wasn't just a nurse tonight, she was a force, and the enemy was about to learn, the hard way, that no one should ever underestimate her. From the far doorway, Jordan noticed the faint outline of a heavily armed enemy squad flanking the hospital, moving in silence. She tightened her grip on the rifle, eyes narrowing. This is the real fight," she whispered. Jordan spotted them before anyone else did. 4 shadows moved low along the outer wall of the hospital, rifles raised, footsteps synchronized. These weren't panicked fighters firing wildly, these were trained men, disciplined, methodical, dangerous. A flanking unit. "This isn't random," Jordan murmured. "They're professionals." Mac's eyes fluttered open wider. Even through the pain, he recognized the movement pattern instantly. "That's a kill team," he rasped. "They're coming for the hospital." Jordan didn't hesitate. She rose slightly from cover and addressed the room in a calm, commanding voice. "Listen to me. No screaming, no running. We stay quiet, we stay alive." Medics froze, fear etched into their faces, but something in her tone, controlled, grounded, cut through the panic. They trusted her now. Jordan motioned to Luis and 2 others. "Take the wounded to the back corridor, lights off, move slow." As they obeyed, she slid another magazine into her rifle and checked the chamber with practiced efficiency. Mac watched her with a mixture of disbelief and respect. "You move like one of us," he whispered. Jordan didn't look at him. "I trained with people like you," she said flatly. "I just chose a different uniform." The first enemy reached the side entrance. Jordan saw the muzzle flash before she heard the shot. She rolled behind cover as bullets tore through the doorway, splintering wood and sending sparks across the floor. She popped back up, fired twice, clean, controlled. One attacker dropped, the others scattered. "Contact left," she shouted. The hospital erupted again. Gunfire echoed through narrow hallways, amplifying every shot. Jordan repositioned, moving between cover points like she had rehearsed it 100 times before. Max struggled to sit up. "Jordan, if they breach the back, everyone's dead." "I know," she replied. "That's why they won't." She grabbed a smoke grenade from the supply crate and rolled it toward the side corridor. Thick gray smoke filled the hall, obscuring vision. The enemy hesitated. That hesitation cost them. Jordan stepped through the smoke like a ghost. One attacker appeared through the haze. She fired without breaking stride. Another tried to flank. She dropped to one knee, pivoted and neutralized him before he could pull the trigger. 2 down. The last enemy pulled back, firing blindly. Bullets ripped into the wall inches from Jordan's head. She slid behind a concrete pillar, breathing steady, heart controlled. She waited. The footsteps came closer. She stepped out and fired once. Silence. For a brief moment, the battlefield went quiet. Only the distant crackle of fire and the ringing in her ears remained. Jordan scanned, confirming no movement. Clear. She exhaled slowly. Behind her, medics stared in stunned silence. Luis whispered, That was insane." Jordan turned. That was necessary. Mac let out a weak laugh, then winced in pain. I've been in firefights with my team, and I've never seen someone control chaos like that. Jordan knelt beside him, checking his vitals. You're stable, for now, but we're not done. As if summoned by her words, the truck outside roared louder. The mounted gun opened up again, shredding part of the hospital's outer wall. Dust rained from the ceiling. They're angry now, Mac said grimly. You hurt their pride. Jordan looked toward the breach. Good. Angry fighters make mistakes. She grabbed another rifle and tossed it toward a wounded soldier who could still fight. If you can aim, you can help. The soldier nodded, determination replacing fear. The enemy charged. This time Jordan didn't wait. She leaned into the opening, firing in controlled bursts. Each shot forced the attackers to slow, to scatter, to second-guess their advance. The medics stayed low, working faster, fueled by the belief that maybe, just maybe, they'd survive this. A round slammed into the counter beside Jordan, sending shards flying. She ducked, repositioned, and fired again. Another enemy fell. Mac clenched his teeth, watching through blurred vision. You turned the tide, he whispered. They thought this place was weak. Jordan reloaded smoothly. They underestimated the wrong person. Another explosion rocked the ground, closer now. The truck was repositioning for a final push. Jordan scanned the battlefield, eyes narrowing. Then she saw it, the exposed fuel line on the side of the truck. Her lips tightened. She lined up the shot. Time seemed to slow. She exhaled, pulled the trigger. The bullet struck the fuel line. A split second later, the truck erupted in a violent explosion, flames lighting up the night sky. The shockwave knocked attackers off their feet and sent debris flying. The enemy scattered in panic. Inside the hospital, stunned silence fell. Then cheers erupted, raw, emotional, disbelieving. Jordan lowered the rifle, chest rising and falling steadily. Max stared at her, awe etched across his blood-streaked face. You didn't just save us, he said quietly. You won the fight. Jordan looked down at him. No, she said. I kept us alive. Outside, the remaining enemy forces retreated, dragging their wounded away into the darkness. For the first time all night, the gunfire stopped. But Jordan didn't relax. She knew better. She stayed alert, rifle still raised, eyes scanning the shadows, because battles like this had a way of coming back when you least expected them, and somewhere in the distance, she heard movement again. Not retreating. Approaching. Jordan's expression hardened as she whispered, They're not done. Max swallowed. Neither are you. The silence after the explosion felt unnatural. No gunfire, no shouting. Just the crackle of burning debris outside and the distant moans of the wounded inside the hospital. Smoke drifted through shattered windows, catching the light in pale gray ribbons. Jordan remained still, rifle raised, eyes sharp. She had learned long ago that silence in a battlefield rarely meant safety. Mac watched her from the stretcher, chest rising unevenly. Most people relax after something like that, he said weakly. You didn't. Jordan didn't take her eyes off the doorway. That's how you get killed. Medics slowly emerged from cover, adrenaline still flooding their systems. Some laughed nervously, others cried quietly. A few simply stared at Jordan like they were seeing her for the first time. Louise broke the silence. Jordan, they're pulling back. I think we did it. Think isn't good enough, she replied. Check the perimeter. Quietly. Two soldiers moved to the openings, peering into the smoke-filled night. After a tense moment, one nodded. No movement. Enemies retreating. Only then did Jordan lower the rifle. The moment she did, the weight of the night seemed to crash down on her all at once. She leaned against a counter briefly, steadying her breathing. Her hands, still firm, showed no tremor, but her eyes carried the exhaustion of someone who had been holding the line alone. She turned back to Mac. He was watching her with a look she recognized immediately. Not attraction, not fear. Respect. You saved everyone in this room, he said quietly. Including me. Jordan checked his vitals again, methodical, professional. You're not out of danger yet. Bullet missed your heart by less than an inch. Mac exhaled slowly. Story of my life. She allowed herself the faintest smile. Outside, the fires burned lower. The battlefield was littered with wreckage. Abandoned weapons, overturned vehicles, scorch marks where the truck had exploded. The enemy had fled, but Jordan knew they wouldn't forget this loss easily. Mac shifted slightly, wincing. You never answered me. About what? Who you really are? Jordan paused. Around them, medics worked quietly now, listening without pretending not to. She took a breath. Before I was a nurse, I was trained for combat medicine. Tactical response, crisis zones, places where the rules collapse and people show you who they really are. Mac nodded slowly. And you chose this life? I chose saving people, she said. Doesn't matter if that means holding pressure on a wound or picking up a rifle. He studied her face. You ever miss it, the fighting? Jordan met his gaze. I never left it. I just fight differently now. A sudden crack echoed in the distance. Jordan stiffened instantly. Everyone down, she said sharply. The room froze again. Another sound followed. Footsteps. Slow. Careful. Jordan moved toward the doorway, signaling for silence. Her rifle came up, eyes narrowing. A figure appeared in the smoke. Jordan tensed. Friendly, a voice called out. Friendly! A small Allied unit emerged, weapons lowered, eyes wide as they took in the scene. The destroyed entrance, the fallen attackers, the nurse holding a rifle like she owned the battlefield. One of the soldiers stared. What the hell happened here? Jordan lowered the rifle. You were late. The soldier glanced around, shaking his head. Looks like you didn't need us. Mac chuckled weakly. You have no idea. As the Allied unit secured the area, medevac prep began. Stretchers were brought in. Wounded were stabilized and moved out. When they came for Mac, he grabbed Jordan's wrist gently. Hey, she looked down at him. You don't know this yet, he said, but you changed something tonight. For me, for everyone here. Jordan squeezed his hand briefly. Get better. That's thanks enough. As they wheeled him out, Mac kept his eyes on her until the corridor swallowed him. The hospital slowly returned to order, broken glass swept aside, blood cleaned, lights stabilized, but something had shifted. The medics didn't look at Jordan the same way anymore. She wasn't just their colleague, she was their shield. Hours later, as dawn threatened the horizon, Jordan stepped outside. The air was cool, heavy with smoke and the smell of burned metal. She looked over the battlefield, silent now, scarred but still standing. She exhaled. A voice came from behind her. They'll talk about this. Jordan didn't turn. Let them. They'll want to know who you are. She shrugged. They already do. The voice hesitated. Command might not like a nurse taking up arms. Jordan finally turned. Her expression was calm, unapologetic. Then Command doesn't understand survival. The officer studying her nodded slowly. You broke the rule book tonight. Jordan looked back at the rising sun. Rules don't save lives. People do. As the first light touched the ruins, Jordan knew something else too. This wasn't the end. The enemy had retreated, but they had been humiliated. And people like that always came back. She checked her rifle one last time. Ready. From the far ridge, a pair of binoculars lowered. Someone was watching the hospital, and they weren't done with her yet. The ridge was quiet, but Jordan knew better than to trust quiet. She stood just outside the hospital's broken entrance, rifle resting against her shoulder, eyes fixed on the dark horizon. The first light of dawn painted the smoke-filled sky in pale orange, but the battlefield still felt alive, like it was holding its breath. Someone had been watching. She felt it in her bones. Inside, the hospital buzzed with low voices and movement as the last wounded were prepared for evacuation. But Jordan's focus stayed outward. Battles rarely ended cleanly. The enemy didn't retreat because they were beaten. They retreated because they were planning something worse. A faint crunch echoed from the rubble to her left. Jordan moved instantly, sliding behind cover, rifle up. 3 figures emerged from the smoke. Slow, deliberate, heavily armed. Not panicked fighters, not desperate men. Hunters. Jordan whispered into the radio, We've got movement. Small unit. Quiet. No response yet. The signal was weak. She exhaled and steadied herself. The lead attacker raised his binoculars, then froze. Jordan fired. The first man dropped before he understood what happened. The other 2 dove for cover, returning fire. Bullets snapped past her position, tearing into concrete. Jordan rolled, repositioned, and fired again, forcing them to spread out. She moved with purpose now. No wasted motion, no hesitation. Inside the hospital, Louise heard the shots and looked up in alarm. She's still out there. Jordan flanked wide, using the smoke and debris. One attacker tried to rush her position. She waited until he committed, then stepped out and ended it with a single shot. The last man ran. Jordan didn't chase. She knew the trap. Instead, she scanned higher, back to the ridge, and there he was. A final figure stepped into view, silhouetted by the rising sun. Taller, calm, a commander, he raised his weapon slowly, almost respectfully. Jordan raised hers. For a moment, the world narrowed to two people and one decision. The man spoke through a cracked radio speaker. "You're not what we expected." Jordan's voice was steady. "Neither are you. You embarrassed us," he said. "That has consequences." She adjusted her stance. "So does attacking a hospital." The commander paused, studied her. "You could walk away," he offered. "This ends now." Jordan's finger tightened on the trigger. "No," she said. "This ends when you do." The shot rang out. The commander fell backward, disappearing over the ridge. Silence followed, real silence this time. Jordan stayed still for several seconds, scanning, listening, waiting for the echo of retaliation. Nothing came. Slowly, she lowered the rifle. Inside the hospital, the gunfire had stopped. Louise stepped outside cautiously. "Jordan, it's over," she said. Relief crashed through the camp like a wave. Some people cried openly now. Others laughed. A few sank to the ground, overwhelmed. Jordan leaned against the wall, finally allowing the tension to drain from her body. Her hands shook. Just a little, not fear, release. Hours later, the medevac helicopters lifted off, carrying the wounded, including Mac. Before they loaded him, he caught sight of Jordan standing near the hospital entrance. He raised a hand weakly. She nodded back. That was enough. As the dust settled and the battlefield emptied, an officer approached Jordan with a folder in his hand. "Command wants a report," he said. "They want to know who picked up the rifle." Jordan looked at the folder, then at the hospital behind her. "Tell them a nurse did her job." The officer hesitated. "They'll ask questions." "They always do," she replied calmly. Days later, the story spread, not officially, not in reports, but among soldiers, among medics, among SEALs, a story about a hospital that didn't fall, about a team that survived the impossible, about a nurse who refused to panic when everyone else did. Mac told it best. From his hospital bed, when someone asked him what happened that night, he smiled faintly and said, "I thought she was just a nurse." Then she picked up a rifle and turned the entire battle. Jordan never corrected him. She returned to her work. New patients, new nights, same calm hands, but every now and then, when the alarms went off and fear crept into the room, people looked to her. And when she spoke, they listened, because they knew now, courage doesn't always wear a uniform. Sometimes it wears scrubs, and sometimes when the world is falling apart. That's exactly who you want standing beside you. If this story surprised you, hit like, because real heroes don't always wear uniforms. Subscribe for more powerful, real-life inspired stories that reveal the courage people never see. And turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story that will change how you see strength forever. Just a nurse, or a hidden hero. Like, subscribe, more unbelievable stories coming next.